There you go.
Hey, what's going
What's
on?
up, guys? Hey,
How are you? Thanks for having us.
great. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you guys are getting super busy these days with all the media stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Congratulations.
been easy. It can get a
Con
little overwhelming.
when did you first film the Millennial Money segment?
January originally.
Hmm.
January 2020?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
towards the
Yeah.
end. Towards
So
the end.
I probably saw that a couple, maybe a month ago, and then I followed Graham Stephan, so I saw that response, which is really cool. And then come to
Yeah,
find out, someone who was on live with me last week, Tiffany and Obed Logo, are good friends of mine.
yeah,
So that was a small world. What a small world.
Yeah. We
yeah.
love them.
Yeah, right. They're the best. They're blowing up doing the music thing, and you guys are blowing up doing the YouTube thing, which is really, really cool. So, well, first of all, nice to meet you guys. Thank you so much for your time. I think we're gonna, give it a few minutes to have a lot of, some people join us. But for those of us who don't know you, maybe if you could introduce yourselves and just kind of give us a little bit of your backstory, where you guys are from, how you met, and what you're up to these days.
Yeah. So my name is Cote Nasa Bush, and um,
Maurique.
Awesome.
and we actually met in middle school. He kind of, I guess, has always had his eye on me, you would say.
When you
And
know,
we,
you know.
I guess, yeah. And so we dated for whatever that means when you're in middle school for a year. Then we got disconnected, reconnected back in college, and then we went on one date over
Yeah.
Thanksgiving break in 2012, 2011, and then the rest is history. And here we
Awesome.
are,
So
almost 6 years married.
what year did you guys graduate high school?
2010,
2010.
yep.
I was gonna say, okay, so you guys are a little younger than me. I was gonna say, for the kids that don't know that back in the day before social media, you had to like, even not everybody had cell phones. So there's a thing called passing notes that we used to do where you would actually like
Yeah.
write
Yep.
and then pass it. And then you had to pray that it would get to the right person and wouldn't get intercepted or wouldn't get ripped. Or
Will,
did you guys ever do
will
that
you
back
be
in the
my
day? Yeah,
girlfriend?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Check
Yes,
one, yes
no,
or
maybe.
yeah, exactly. That's
No, we
awesome.
did some of that in middle
Yes,
school.
yeah, and we had like emails and stuff because my
Yeah.
parents were super strict, so I didn't have a phone until I was a junior in high school. So it was a lot of emailing and IMing back and forth and
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah, I remember it was a game changer when we found out instant messaging was like a game changer. So
yeah.
where did you guys go to middle school and high school?
Lincoln College Prep
Mhm.
in Kansas City, Missouri, where
Kansas
we
City. Okay, so
originally,
that's where you're from originally, is my Kansas City, Missouri. Okay, cool. And that's how you
yeah.
know
And that's
Tiff
where we
Tiff
met
and
Tiffany
Obed.
and Obed.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
Awesome.
at the church there.
What a small world. Yeah. So I grew um I'm a little bit older than them as well, but I think went to the same church with Obed for a little while, and then Tiff also grew up nearby. So it's the same region, next town over. So
Yeah.
pretty cool how it's working out. Okay, so you guys, junior high, high school sweethearts,
Like,
and then
somebody said
what
they met.
happened? What happened after that?
So after that, we ended up getting married. So we got engaged our sophomore year of
Hmm.
college, and then we got married our first year out of school. And then we spent a couple of years pretty much racking up every bit of debt that you could probably imagine. Um,
Taking trips as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
just everything pretty much you could imagine. And then we decided one day to get serious. She was ready to get serious about it before I was. And then when my light bulb finally went off, we ended up getting serious about the debt and paid off $125,000 worth over a
Wow.
24-month period.
All right. So before we
So,
get into the nitty gritty, because people want to know about the financial stuff, what trips did you go on at least? Because
Oh, we were
everybody's fantasizing about taking trips. So what trips did you guys go on?
right. We went to Hawaii. We went to we did like a road trip all across
the West,
the
yeah.
West. Yeah, we actually camped down in the Grand Canyon for a few
Oh
nights. Then we
wow.
went up to Seattle, and then we went through and saw Mount Rushmore. We've been to Mexico. We've gone to Miami.
Hawaii.
Awesome.
We've
Awesome.
we've
Yeah, it was
been
quite a bit. We were
Awesome.
spending it like there was no
So
tomorrow.
yep.
like an extended honeymoon, right?
Yeah.
Right.
A
Right.
two
Awesome.
two to 3 year honeymoon.
So
Right.
what was okay, so you finished college, you went on a bunch of trips, you got married. What was kind of the wake up call financially that you guys started to, consider what you were spending more so than you did before?
So we received a settlement of about $9,000, and it was a lot. It still is a lot, but at the time it was like the largest lump sum we had ever had. And so I was just kind of like scouring the internet, like, what should we do with this money? Do we save it, invest it, or should we just spend it or whatever? And then that's how I ended up coming across Dave Ramsey's principles and all of his own teachings. And I came home with this bright new idea that I was going to share with her, and she already pretty much was like, I've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
You ready now?
Yeah. Yeah, welcome to the party.
Yeah.
Right.
Basically.
So for you, what was the wake up call, or when did you start thinking about finance and budgeting and that kind of stuff?
Really for me, I just grew up in a pretty frugal home. Like my parents were immigrants. I'm originally from Haiti, and so my parents moved here in '99, and so it's always the immigrant dream. You're bringing your children here so that they can, work and provide a wonderful life that they couldn't have. And so it's always been the mindset of like, you don't want to get into debt. You want to save, you want to build and, become financially stable. But it wasn't until I went and was getting my hair done by a hairstylist, and her church was doing a Dave Ramsey class, and she was like telling me about it. And I was like, oh, that sounds really good. I'm going to tell my husband about it. I'm going to see if we can because we would be able to really knock out some debt at the period of time that we were at in our lives. We didn't really have any type of rent or utility bill or cable, food, everything was covered. I was a resident director out of college, so we lived on campus.
Oh,
and so literally everything was covered. So I was like, babe, my hairstylist was telling me about this guy, and there's a way for us to get out of debt. We could really do it. And he was kind of like, we're young. We don't need to be worried about debt. Let's just live it up. And I was like, I guess we'll just live it up.
Isn't it amazing that you can't get a business loan for $10,000 to start a business as an entrepreneur, but you can get $100,000 worth of student debt at 18 years old like that?
Yeah, with no concept.
You can get 6 figures worth of debt. You can vote for the president. You could vote for the president. You could die in war, but you can't even get a drink or rent a car or get a business loan. I think it's a little backwards.
It makes no sense at all. And we were just talking about that as one of the toxic mindsets that we had as kids, or at least I did, as a college student. It was like, oh, wow, I can just literally sign up and I can get all of this money, and anything that is in excess of what I need for my actual tuition just comes back to me in the form of a refund check. I'll take it any day. And a lot of kids, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids going to college think that way.
Yeah.
And it's extremely dangerous.
Well, and it's it's a little bit of, it should be illegal, but they pay the colleges a lot of money, like the credit card companies, to be on campus. So you're you're signing up for Rush Week, right? You're like, oh, I want to be a part of this club. I want to be a part of this club. And there's Visa or MasterCard giving out swag and tickets and prizes and free pizza, whatever it is they're giving out, that they're out there on campus with young people that are susceptible, that, the first time they're away from home, they're making their own financial decisions in the most case. And it's pretty crazy that we have that system. So you are definitely not alone in that journey and that story. It's very, very common, unfortunately. But even for me, it took me, I'm, definitely, you guys started a lot younger as far as your journey and getting it together. So once you decided, okay, we're going to tackle this debt, we're not kids anymore, we want to make some serious moves, how did that conversation go once you guys agreed? And then what were some of the first steps that you took?
So I think once I came around, she was all for it. She was all down. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because we actually lived in this really, really nice loft space, downtown Jacksonville, Florida. Yep. It was on the 5th floor, downtown views, marble countertops. It was just super nice, 1,100 square foot place, super elegant and upscale and modern. And we were like, if we're going to be serious about this thing, we can't keep throwing all this money away on rent. And we joked about it. The first time I said that, we laughed. And then the more we got into the process and started really sitting down, we started mapping out our budget. We started figuring out where our money was coming from and where it was going. And it was like, wow, this is a lot of money we're spending on this. So then we just started kind of brainstorming other ways that we could essentially still have the flexibility, to move around the country, but at the same time, be putting our money towards ownership. And still be able to get some rental value out of it in the future. And then the tiny house thing really hit all hit all three of those for us. And
That's
so
so
that's
cool.
when that idea popped up, and we ran with it.
So when did the tiny house idea come about?
It was pretty early in the
Yeah.
process. The shows, I was always watching the shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just always saw how like it could really work for us because when I thought about RVs, I was like, well, newer RVs are really pricey and they depreciate very, very heavily like vehicles. Whereas renting, we're not getting anything back for our money, but with the tiny house, we're owning it. And if something changed and we wanted to switch gears, it can be an Airbnb rental, which we had some experience with in the past.
Mm.
And so we felt confident about being able to rent this out
Yeah.
if something crazy happened and we were just like, oh, this was a bad idea. We knew we had a exit strategy. That
So and you guys are in the Dallas area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yep.
So what came first? Did you find the community or did you find the house first?
We actually, so in May of 2017 was when we first decided we were gonna, like, all gas, no brakes, try to get out of debt. And then
Yeah.
in July, we actually it was our anniversary. We gifted ourselves with a tiny house.
That's
and we
so
moved
cool.
into it in November.
That's
and
so
we kind
cool.
of just moved in thinking, like, we're just gonna buy the house and then figure out where we're gonna live. But in
And
the
we were
Okay.
actually in Florida at the time as
Right.
well.
Oh,
we were
wow.
in
Okay.
Florida.
Yeah, and so we were like, we'll just go in a RV park and figure it out. But then once we got there, we realized how hard it was to find actual land to put your tiny house on. And so we were doing research, and then like we ended up coming across this this tiny house community that they were getting ready to have here, and we were already thinking about moving here just for his work and just be closer to home. And then it just worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think, there's probably going to be more of those communities springing up, and it's tough because I actually work in real estate now, and everyone's different, right? Their goals are different, their needs are different. I think right now with quarantine, people maybe are seeing that maybe they have too much house and they need to reduce their expenses. Other people are thinking, man, I need a bigger house with this family, like now that we're home all day. So
Yeah.
Yep.
I
and
can imagine.
everything in between, right? So what were some of how long did it take you from when you decided to implement a budget and get serious? What was the amount of debt you eliminated, and how long did it take you?
So our original debt total, $125,000 is the number that's most familiar to most people. But originally, when we first started getting out of debt, it was actually less because we hadn't bought the tiny house yet.
Right.
So it was like
Okay, so that's including the house.
it does include the tiny
okay,
house.
okay,
Yep.
okay.
So it was a little bit. So it was $55,000 less, and then we bought the tiny house, which kind of bumped it up to that amount. But with the time overlap, it wasn't like we started with that chunk right off the top.
But-
it's just the total amount.
Yeah, for what most people put as a down payment, you bought a whole house, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
basically.
Which is awesome.
And it's funny that you say that because a lot of people rag us online for that, and they're like, $55,000 for a tiny house and da da da. And I'm like, this is a good price for a tiny house.
Yeah.
Like there's tiny houses upwards of 80 and 90,000, which we didn't think made financial sense for us for our goals and purposes.
Yeah.
But when you think about tiny houses that are less than $40,000, a lot of times that's the individual, the owner doing a lot of the labor. We didn't do any of the labor. This is 100% contracted out, licensed electricians, licensed plumbing, licensed roofing, all of that. So this is a very fair price for a house of this size.
So now so when you got it, it was fully functional when it showed up for you. And then, so did you then park it at your community, or did you build it did they finish it at the community?
Oh yeah, no, it was finished, and then they moved it.
Yeah, on their property at the warehouse.
Yeah, they built it all. They finished everything, and then they moved it for us to our place where we're at, and all we did was plug it up and
Wow.
went inside.
And what's the square footage?
About 200. It's 8.5 feet wide and 24 feet long.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
For reference, that same place in the city of San Francisco would probably be, or Manhattan or Hollywood would probably be, $4,000 or $5,000 for something that size a month.
Yeah. A lot of New Yorkers, that find us on YouTube are like, oh, no problem.
That's
They're living like New Yorkers. Oh, what's the big deal?
So as something you guys have talked about in your videos too, you actually you do Airbnb, not obviously currently, but have you done it while you're still living there? Or do you just do it when you leave?
We haven't done it in this house at all yet.
Okay.
What we used to do was we had a 2-bedroom, two bathroom apartment,
Oh, I see. I
and
see.
we were renting out our spare bed, spare bath. So we got very familiar with the Airbnb platform and kind of how to list things and how to make the most money and how to run it. And so we felt confident that if we moved out of this, we could duplicate those.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Wow. That's so cool. So how did obviously once I'm sure people thought you're crazy, right? It's one thing to see something on TLC or HGTV or Instagram or YouTube and think it's really cool. Like I've definitely spent a lot of time going down the van life or tiny house rabbit hole for sure. But to actually do it, to know someone who's actually doing it, how did your family respond? How did your friends respond? And I mean, what were some of the negatives? What were some of the positives?
I mean, they told us we were crazy. Literally, like, I have friends that are like, oh my gosh, y'all are just extremists. Like, when y'all decide you're going to do something, y'all just go all in. Like, there's no stopping you. My mom till this day is like, you think I'm about to come visit you in a tiny house? Absolutely not. She's like, the only way you're getting me down here is if you have a child. So, no, I'm not coming.
Yeah, I think at this point, people we're checked off as crazy in most people's mind. Because when we first started talking about getting out of debt and people heard that we had over 6 figures and we were saying we were going to do it in this amount of time and we were posting on Facebook and stuff, people were, kind of like, really, guys? You could just hear it in the tone of, kind of some of the things people would say. And then we said we were moving into a tiny house, and they're like, yeah, right. And then we did it. And then we said we were starting a YouTube channel, and they're like, but by that point, it's like, okay, I actually believe it now, because they pretty much do every crazy thing we talk about.
Isn't it liberating to just get on the other side of you're like, that's what keeps most people from doing what they want to do, is the fear, right? Fear of what other people will think, fear of it not working out. I mean, even for me doing this, I've been wanting to do a podcast and a vlog for years, and I've just haven't gone around to doing it for various reasons. Finally, I was like, okay, 2020 is the year. And then, pandemic happens. I'm like, dang it. Well, what can I do? All right, let's go live. And the response has been great. I mean, I'm getting to talk to awesome people like yourself. And of course, and in the beginning, I thought, people are going to think I'm like trying to show off, or I think I'm too cool, or I'm like trying to just, whatever. All the negative thoughts that you hear when you like, why are you putting your business on the internet? That's just that old school mentality. But I think what's funny, sometimes the people within our own family, our own friends networks don't support us. Some obviously do, but some don't. But then you meet all the people out there across the world, or, I mean, I'm sure your community has grown quite a bit. So when did you guys start your YouTube channel?
We started in September of last year.
Yep. First video went out September 9th.
September of 2019?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
awesome.
We've only been doing it for about 7 or 8 months now.
Wow. And that's your primary project right now, right?
Yeah, it is.
So talk about the transition from when you guys got fully moved into your house, married, settled in, you both were working multiple jobs, and just basically what the Millennial Money segment talked about. And then, everything happened. Well, it's kind of like the end of February, early March. So how did you, what happened to you guys? How has it affected you, the pandemic, and how are you adjusting?
So for us, I guess we really had, in 2019, we got out of debt in April. So that had been, we were done. We were in the tiny house, debt free, and we were just super excited about all of that. And then I kind of stopped teaching because I was transitioning and my certification didn't transfer because I didn't quite finish it in Florida. And so I was just working in a restaurant. Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, Tay. Sorry, my friend just joined.
No worries. Say hi to everybody.
And so we moved out here, and I want to say in December, like, I picked up a job that really was not paying a lot. I was looking to switch to morning hours to be more kind of like my my teaching schedule, because I was used to just waking up early, and getting to bed on time and things like that. And that really did not make me any money. So that's when we were actually in the process of shooting the Millennial Money series. And then, like, literally right after that, I picked up 2 jobs. I was serving, because I was like, you know what, we've been out of debt for almost a year. We still haven't fully funded our emergency fund. Like, we need to kick things into gear. And so I was like, I'm picking up a couple extra jobs. Like, we're about to do this thing. So I got the new breakfast spot where I was serving at, and I also was bartending at a night in the evenings at a hotel.
Oh, wow.
And I started making pretty good money. And literally a month in, coronavirus happened. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
So she got noticed that she was being laid off from both jobs, and then shortly thereafter, maybe like 3-4 days, is when my company had announced that they were doing the layoffs as well. So YouTube, which was just our hobby, became like our only source of income almost overnight.
And were you able to, I don't know exactly how it works in the state of Texas, but have you been residents long enough? Were you able to get unemployment and all that?
So initially, we didn't think we would be able to, but it does seem like things are working out now. Mine has officially just went through, and I officially just got my first payment.
Good.
And then with hers,
I still haven't gotten through. So I applied because I was laid off before him, and they were telling us at my job, like, y'all need to apply. And so I did, but I've never done anything like that before. So I got it back, and it said, like, you don't make enough. And I didn't realize that it just didn't pick up my Florida work, and so I thought I had only worked
in
at
Texas.
like one, right? And so they're saying, and I didn't realize that, and so I just let it go, and I was like, well, I guess I can't get it. And he was like, babe, no, you need to like retell them like they did it wrong, and now I can't get a hold of them to request payment. So I'm like,
it's super hard to get in touch. Like the phone lines are jammed, the website's
all the time.
I got on at like 3 o'clock in the morning in order to get mine through.
So I mean, everybody's feeling it in one way or another in regards to that. And one thing I'll say, I didn't grow up with the best example in my household. And even as a young adult, made every financial mistake in the book, right? Bought cars I couldn't afford, credit cards, maxed them out, just wasn't, I think, my dad's family comes from Mexico, and there is a little bit of that immigrant mentality, but it was a little bit different. Instead of just like being frugal and saving and being smart, it was more, in our household, it was more like you just work, and then you spend all the money, and then you work again, and then you spend all the money and you work again. You live to the level of your income, right? It was kind of more of the mentality. And then it was just like, oh, well, if you want certain things, you just we can't afford those, or we don't go out to those places, or we don't, you know what I mean? Instead of like, well, what if we just worked hard and saved? Or there's just different mentality that some people have, right? And so for me, a couple of years ago, unfortunately, my mom passed away from pancreatic cancer, and that was kind of a wake-up call. The good thing is she had some life insurance, but the bad thing is she didn't really have a plan in place, or a will, or a trust, or anything like that. And so, and I had watched my parents, when they got divorced, they sold their home, and then they both kind of didn't have much money after that. They had some cash and didn't really handle it well, so didn't really have the best example. My older brother has done really well. But for me, that was a wake-up call where I was like, I need to get my personal financial house in order, and my background was working in restaurants and events and marketing. And so I love that world, but I could already kind of see, like, I need to get out of this, like, gig to gig kind of situation, right? So anyway, I was able to study and get my licenses and insurance and real estate, and just learn so much in the last couple of years. So that's why I've been following guys like Graham and found stuff like what you guys are doing. And really the reason why a budget sounds like restriction, and it is in some ways just like a diet, but it's also freedom. Because right now, even though the economy is affected, your jobs are affected, because you guys are debt free, how much better do you feel? How much better are you able to handle this moment because you had the rest of this past year you were preparing?
Yeah. And even within our budget, a lot of our items these days, even before all this, are really elective things, things. There's only, like, I would say like 3 or 4 items, your insurances and your phone bill and cable bill or whatever, internet. There's really only like 3 or 4 things that absolutely have a due date on them. Everything else is kind of, I won't say discretionary spending, but it's things that you could cut out if you needed to. So that was part of why, you saw in the Millennial Money episode where we were able to basically slash our budget almost in half, just by, kind of revisiting it and looking at, what was absolutely essential. So you're absolutely spot on when you talk about the freedom.
What are some things that you guys have done that maybe at first seemed like it was going to be a big deal to cut, but now that you've made the change, you don't even miss it, or it's not even a big deal?
Well, I mean, just strictly like because of the pandemic, going out to eat. And I'm like, I'm not trying to walk outside. I'm not trying to go out there anyway. So it's like not missed at all. And I love cooking. So
you should see us when we actually do go out and get something. We'll like bring it back. and like she'll wash her hands and then bring out the new plates, and we'll like separate everything from its original packaging and get rid of all
I know.
the McDonald's or whatever place we got
Yeah.
it from. Get rid of all the packaging and try to just reduce the likelihood of something happening. We're taking all kinds of precautions these days.
Those of us that were already a little bit germophobic or OCD are like, see, I told you, I knew it all this time. Like today I was at the store and I like had these, it's really hard to find gloves and masks anywhere right now, right? But I got these like food service gloves. So I just use those. So like when I grab things or whatever, it's like when I'm shopping. But someone, Carrie Lee asked, did you guys make a lot of money in order to pay for your home that fast? And she must have just joined later, but basically I think you guys answered that.
So
yeah, we were working a lot of jobs. I had 3 at one point. He had 3 at one point. Literally, we just worked, ate, and slept, and that was it.
Yeah.
Like we work.
Originally, our household income between the two of us with just our full-time jobs was about $75,000. And then between her picking up extra work at like different restaurants and me picking up extra work doing like pizza delivery and working overnight at UPS, we got our net after-tax household income up to just over $100,000. And so that's how we were able to do it so fast. A lot of people saw Millennial Money and said, how did they pay off $125
with $56,000?
$56,000, but in reality, that didn't cap. That was a snapshot of where we're at that time when we shot that, not the same as when we were working all the different side hustles.
And how did the Millennial Money opportunity come about?
I actually reached out to them. I had watched the show for quite a long time, their channel, and especially those Millennial Money episodes. And I just reached out to them by email and kind of share our story with them. And it turns out they were actually coming to Dallas that maybe just like 2 weeks later. I think I sent the email early January, and they're like, hey, we're actually filming, in Austin with some people coming up. Would you guys be good for the end?
Yeah.
And
I will say one thing there about their business. They seriously like fact checked everything. They're like, send over this, your taxes, your like accounts. We're trying to make sure y'all are seriously
that's good
about that. So
that's good. And how's it gone with Graham? Have you guys been in touch with him?
So he reacted to our Millennial Money video, and then we did a reaction to his
reaction.
And since then, I don't think we've talked with them at all.
Okay.
But we may do like some sort of like an update after this is all said and done.
Yeah.
I can think of a couple of video ideas that would be really good, especially with the interest that he's mentioned in
and
tiny
then,
houses.
And then I just saw something about Good Morning America. What's going on with that?
Yeah. So we were actually maybe a week ago.
Has it only? I don't have a concept of time right now, so
nobody does. Nobody does.
So about a week ago,
maybe
it was basically 4 hours after the CNBC article published. A producer from Good Morning America had actually reached out to us via email and had heard our story, and they were actually doing a piece on how the coronavirus had impacted different families across America. So they kind of wanted us to do a little bit for their show. So we sent them over some information, chatted with them, and then they aired a little segment that featured our YouTube channel. Not the following morning, but like over a 3-day period.
Saturday,
we got up to catch the show, and then on the third day we saw it. So that was super exciting for us.
That's awesome. I think you guys are going to get a lot of opportunities coming up because you have such a unique story and it's so relevant to what's happening right now. So be prepared to be busy. And I think the content that you're putting out on your channel is awesome. And I think there's probably going to be a lot more calls and emails coming from some of the major networks as well. So be ready. But what would you, obviously you guys had a foundation as high school sweethearts, but a lot of couples struggle. The number one struggle for most couples is money. Right. So one person has a background and they maybe they're super frugal. The other person is not frugal at all. And so how, it took you guys a little while, but now that you've kind of are in sync when it comes to your earning and your spending, what advice would you have to couples that either are just maybe dating or maybe couples that have been together for a while and don't see eye to eye when it comes to money?
Well, I would say for starters, it's just important to be patient and graceful with your spouse, because if you didn't catch it earlier, what we were talking about, she was actually ready to start paying off debt 2 years before I was, and she was talking to me about it and different things like that. And it was like really in one ear and out the other. When I came home and started talking about getting out of debt, and she told me like, I've been telling you this, it was like it was my first time ever hearing it.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes you can be having these conversations, or you might be putting these subtle hints out there or whatever, and you know the other person might not be picking it up, or it might not even be coming across to them as important as it is to you. So I would just say be patient for starters. And then I think once you do kind of feel that you're starting to get on the same page, the momentum that you start to build, like we were connected, like we were working so much, we were spending less time together than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we were going after a goal together, and we were both tackling this something so monumental together, it brought us closer together in a new way that we had never really experienced.
I love the part where you talk about how you were delivering pizzas and she would come along with you on the ride just so that you could spend time together. I mean, that's obviously super romantic, and like it shows that how much of a team you guys are. You know, some people would be, again, everyone's background's different, everyone's views are different, but I just love it, and it comes across in everything you guys do, how much of a team you are, how strong of a couple you are. And I just wish more people could have those conversations and really be real with each other. It's super important. I'm not married, but that's something on the horizon for me, and that's one of those things that I definitely think about. Like, so for the couples that are already together, you've talked about that. If, let's say, someone is about to start dating, or is kind of casually dating, what are some questions? Let's say you didn't know each other and you could go back to just dating, knowing what you know now. What are questions you would ask someone else that you were getting to know about, and in regard to money and lifestyle, that would, help to reveal their mindset, or that you would, basically see where they stand on a lot of things?
What are your thoughts on debt? How much debt do you have? What is your debt repayment plan?
Maybe not on the first day.
Like it.
Not on the first day.
Dating.
But
oh gosh, but seriously, those are really like important questions to talk about, because I think the reason why it's such the biggest issue for married folks nowadays is because people come in, like, we're all from different backgrounds. You come in with your different set of beliefs and different things of how you, and then once all the lovey-dovey things die down and you're like the smoke is cleared, so to speak, you're like, wait a minute, how much money do you owe to who? What's the interest? And so it's important to talk about those things early on. And I think also we just spend too much time, like, we take things too seriously. Like, if you love the person and you want to be with that person and you want to have a future with them, like, you can talk anything out. Like, it's never that deep. And I feel like nowadays we get so stuck in our ways, and I guess it's just really selfish. Like, you don't want to think about the other person's wants and their needs. You just want to me, I've got this plan. But it's so much more powerful to have two different streams of income coming together. Like, we can do so much more together as a team than if we were just by yourself. It's just put whatever problems you have aside and do whatever you need to do with your teammate.
Right. Well, there's, on one hand, I think there's everyone has a different path, right? But one school of thought is that single is the way to go, because then you don't have these extra expenses, because sometimes a spouse can be expensive or kids can be expensive, which is true, but that's also part of life, right? The other thing is, like you guys have done, where you do it as a team. You tackle it as a team. So it's not, this is my job, this is my money, and whatever. It's like, hey, we're doing this as a team. Every dollar that comes in goes into the pot. We tackle the bills. I mean, ideally, that's what I think. I think that's the ideal scenario, that you do it as a team. Absolutely. Because, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's exactly how we viewed it too. Like, even now, but especially during the debt-free journey, we couldn't even tell you, who brought in what, who paid out to what. Oh, well, remember last week we put this much on your student loan, so this week is my, there was none of that. It was the debts in order from smallest to largest. Every dollar in, these are the expense items we have for the month. Everything else goes back out on that smallest one. Once that's gone, we move on to the next one. And that psychological impact, I think people greatly undervalue that. Like, a lot of people will say, well, what about the highest interest rate? It doesn't matter if you're paying on the debt with the highest interest rate first if you don't stick to the plan.
Right.
The only plan that works is the one that actually motivates you to keep doing it. And so it was, good. And I think people...
The same applies to diet, right? The same applies to diet and working out. It's like the plan that works is the one that you're going to follow. You can argue whether it's keto or vegan or whatever. Like, the one that you follow is the one that's going to work, right? And it's all connected too. Obviously, consumption and spending. I think we're all as a world, because the pandemic is affecting everyone, but especially as a country, because Americans probably more than anyone have discretionary income. We buy money on or spend money on things that we don't need, like going out, entertainment. Pretty quickly we saw what was essential. I think everyone is essential, right? Obviously, anyone who works hard deserves respect, whatever your job is. At the same time, some of these things we're seeing, like, oh, well, maybe I didn't need to go out to do this or go out to do that, or like, do I really need that? Like, people are saving money because they're being forced to, but I think a lot of people are going to reevaluate their budget and how they spend their time and money moving forward. So you guys already kind of did that a year ago, but now coming out of this, what are some changes you think? What let's say all the changes get lifted, let's say in a month from now, and everything goes back to semi-normal, which every state's a little bit different. I know Texas is trying to open sooner than California and New York, but what are some things that, how has this changed you? How has this last month and a half changed you guys?
I think it's kind of showed us how important it was to have that emergency fund. We sort of got out of debt, and then we got so excited about being out of debt and not having to work all those jobs anymore. We spent a year just having fun and not really, like, we didn't take that same intensity into the next step, which was building up the emergency fund. So then when coronavirus hit, we only had $5,000. And so it kind of woke us up to that extent. Like, our stimulus check.
Don't take your foot off the gas, basically.
Yeah. Our stimulus check went 100% to savings. We didn't even think about spending it anywhere else. Any income that's coming in right now in excess of what we need for our everyday living expenses is going, 100% to that emergency fund until we have that beefed up to, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses.
So you guys did a great job of paying off your debt. Now, what do you think about investing? So what people don't understand, this is something I didn't learn until later in life. In the last couple of years, I've learned more in the last 3 years than the previous 30, as far as about money and investing and all that. What people don't understand is that time can work for you or work against you, right? Interest can work for you or against you. So credit card over time will compound, and you're going to end up owing more than you can ever pay back, whether it's a student loan or a credit card or whatever. Same thing if you have an investment, whether it's in the stock market or in real estate or whatever it might be, it's going to grow over time as well. So what are some investments that you guys are currently making or hope to make in the future?
So right now, our primary investment is just the traditional 401k.
Okay.
Our first priority is really to get that 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved and set to the side. Because if we have a bunch of money tied up in different accounts, it really does us no good if we end up in a pinch like right now,
right,
and need liquid assets that we can't reach or can't reach without great penalty or tax implications. So the first thing is really getting that 3 to 6 month expenses saved up, and then I would say my biggest two principles on investing in general is don't put money in what you don't understand.
Okay.
And then number two is play the long game. So we're very much going to get into very safe mutual funds, very conservative approach is kind of what we'll be taking to our investment strategy once we get to that point.
What about real estate wise? Are you thinking, have you thought about starting a family in a tiny house, or do you think you'd grow to a regular house by then, or what do you thought? I'm sure people ask you those questions.
Yeah, that's her idea. That's what I'll let her talk about that.
Okay.
I think we can have at least one kid in this house right now.
For sure.
Unless we have twins, and that'd be great because I'm trying to have as many all at once. You're
so efficient. You're so efficient.
Listen, yes. I think we could do small children in this house, but I think once they start to move around, we might need to get a bigger one. But I do think we could live tiny for a good chunk of time. I don't know if I can convince this one for us to be in a tiny house for a long time, but I think we would essentially get a bigger tiny house because this is a pretty small one compared to most tiny houses that you'll see out there on the internet. We'll get a bigger one and then probably rent this one on Airbnb, get some returns on it. But we've also thought about buying some land and doing our own community and maybe
I was just gonna say that's what you should do. That's what you should do.
Even if we are still in a tiny house, though, it still doesn't stop us from getting into traditional real estate.
Sure.
Even if this is the lifestyle that we want and to live with less. My dad's been in real estate all his life.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to end up probably down a similar path of
Well,
buying
especially
homes, fixing them up, and renting them out for the.
especially in Texas. I mean, the cost of property in Texas versus other states, and then the tax situation in Texas. I mean, you guys are poised. That's the best thing I think. What people don't realize, you think, oh, well, I lost my job, or maybe I don't have a lot of income right now. But if you don't have debt, you're already ahead of the game. You can
Right.
get the income back, and if your expenses are already low and you know how to like survive on not much per month, and you're pretty simple as far as your spending on food and clothing and stuff, and you have each other for entertainment, so you're not like having to go on crazy trips all the time. Like, you guys are already poised to win. So when that income comes back, which it will in a short amount of time, both in your jobs and I really do believe that your media, uh, is going to grow quite a bit. You're already like, it's growing exponentially. And so, I mean, I'm very grateful that you guys agreed to do this. I know that it's going to grow exponentially. And if I can do anything to help on that side, I definitely will. But I think now, if you guys can maintain that discipline, like you said, the last time, once you got out of debt, you kind of let off the gas. I think
Right. Right.
now coming out of this, because the income is going to start coming back within a month or two, you guys are going to be back to work, I'm sure. What are some of your goals, kind of short term and long term, coming out of the quarantine? What are some of your short term goals?
So I would say on the short term, growing the channel is definitely a top priority. The more the channel grows, the more opportunities it opens up. Once we passed the 10,000 subscriber mark, that actually opened up the avenue for us to start launching merchandise. And so we have some things in the works. We
There
actually
you
just
go.
got done with some of our first designs. And then there's a membership opportunity within the channel as well. So there's a ton of different streams just off of the channel alone.
Yeah,
And then we actually think that the channel will actually do a great job of basically be a great place for us to promote our business when we do start the small tiny home village. There's a
absolutely.
certain notoriety that comes with the channel, and if people get the
Yeah,
opportunity to stay in that YouTube tiny house versus just any other tiny house,
of
there's a
course.
there's a unique value
Of
proposition
course.
there. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're already talking like an investor with a unique value proposition. Absolutely.
yeah,
I mean, I think anybody watching this right now, if they could fly to Dallas and rent that tiny house for the experience, I think they would do it, because I think a lot of people are really interested in either alternative lifestyles, right? Whether it's tiny house, whether it's communal living, whether it's living in an RV or a van. I think people are very interested in it. Most people that are interested aren't really ready to commit to it, right? In California, they probably say this in Texas too. They're not about that life. So they're not, like, it's a cool idea, but would people really sell everything they have and go live in an RV or go live in a tiny house? Most probably won't. But there are going to be those that maybe, if they have the experience and they get to test it out for a weekend, that would be
yep,
all they need to seal the deal. So I think that's a great idea. I definitely would love to do it for sure. I'm fortunate.
absolutely.
Like, I grew up in not a tiny house, but like a small house, and with a big family, and we didn't have much, and it was like, so I've never been like, I like nice things. I've stayed in plenty of 5-star hotels and had nice dinners, but I don't have to have them. Like, I've slept in my car, like I've showered at the gym, like whatever you got to do, like. And I think to me, I've always valued experiences more than possessions, right? So like, I went to Thailand a couple of years ago, and I was like, man, if I can, and I'm learning now, because now I'm working in insurance and real estate, and I'm doing a lot of it remotely. And now the whole economy is shifting to remote work. So it's like, wait a minute, I'm here at home doing this. I might as well be on a beach somewhere doing this, right? We could be having this conversation. You guys could be in Hawaii. I could be in Japan. We'd be having the same conversation. So I think our generation is seeing, like, you know what? The economy really is global. And if you play your cards right, like, you really do have options. I think that's
Yeah,
what I would try to tell people is like, if you're debt free and you know how to budget, you have options. And it's a lot cooler to get stamps on your passport than to have the latest $2,000 shoes, in my opinion.
absolutely. And even beyond that, even if you're not looking to just get out and travel and be all about, going all over the place, just the flexibility that you have within with a mobile living situation like what we're doing right now is, if we got a phone call tomorrow for a job opportunity that was halfway across the country, I mean, we could pick up and really move on that. Whereas sometimes in a house, you can be sort of tied down to where it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
now we got to make the decision. Do we want to sell? How fast does the house sell? And,
Right.
everything associated with moving. So
Yeah.
we just thought, we're younger, it's important to keep that flexibility. And so
That's
that
so
was a
awesome.
big part of the decision for us.
No, that you're so right. You're so right. I mean, you guys have you've done it. You know, obviously it came at a little bit of misunderstanding, maybe from your friends and family in the beginning, and you powered through that, and you did the hard work of saving and budgeting and restricting your lifestyle a little bit so that you could knock out those goals. And now you're becoming a voice in this generation. You're becoming leaders because a lot of people follow the traditional American path, right? Oh, you go to high school. What do you do after high school? You go to college. And I got the chance to go to school in Canada, and just living in Canada for 2 years opened my eyes to realize that there's a lot of things that only Americans do, right? One of those
Exactly.
things is college, right? So there's people that go to university around the world, but most people that go to university around the world go for a specific reason. They're going because they're going to be a professor, they're going to be a doctor, they're going to be a lawyer, or they go to a trade school. It's really only in the US where college is just like what you do after high school. So
Right.
people
Yep.
like, oh, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to figure it out. Well, at 18, nobody knows who the heck they are, what they're going to do. Very few people know who they are in their late teenage or early 20 years. I mean, let's just be honest. So you spend all this money for what? Right?
Yep.
And then you end up probably getting into a different job. And then the guy who maybe went to trade school or got a job right out of high school has been saving money, been buying properties, been investing. And, you know, it's what's crazy is that I know real estate agents that make more money than doctors. And again, obviously, in the grand scheme of humanity, what doctors do is more important. But there's a
Right.
lot of people that became a doctor not because they have a passion for medicine. They did it because they thought, oh, I'm going to make a lot of money and people are going to think I'm really cool. And then all of a sudden, they don't really start breaking even until they're in their 50s. Because you think you had a lot of student debt. Do you know how much student debt it is for one of those high-level careers?
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And not only just the debt associated with the continued education, but also the opportunity costs associated with being in school for those additional years, whereas everybody else has already jumped into the workforce. Not saying people shouldn't do it, but
Right.
just it's got to be thought out. It's, there's got to be a plan associated with it. Going to college with a purpose, a degree filled with a purpose and a plan.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And
Couldn't agree
now that you've done that, and then you have the lifestyle that you have now, you could probably go back and study whatever you wanted because you're coming at it with a different mindset. I don't think we would ever implement it in this country, but I almost think people should like travel or join the military or Peace Corps or something for the first couple of years, and then maybe use that as payment for college so that people don't have to go into debt just to learn what you can learn on Google or at the local library. But a lot of it is,
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
that's wishful thinking. But
Yeah.
I love your idea for a village. What would be, I'm sure your friends ask you for advice. Have you had any stories of friends or family that thought you were crazy, but now they're like your biggest fan, or now they want to know how you did it?
Well, I think the most inspiring thing, especially with the YouTube thing, is friends and family that like are now inspired to start a channel. So that'll be like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a channel. This is kind of my idea. What do you think about it? Like that? That shows us more than words that they see the value in it, and they see the ability to influence and the different options and income streams that can come from it. So that's probably the biggest one for me. I don't think we've quite convinced anybody to go tiny. We don't know anybody that's officially gone tiny.
Maybe not tiny, but just like budgeting and being more frugal and tackling it more as a team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we get a lot on the channel. We get that comment probably 5-6 times a day, I would say, across different videos of people just saying, this is really encouraging, really inspiring. Thank you for like those comments really keep us going.
Awesome.
We started just to kind of tell people about how we got out of debt.
Yeah.
Was the main reason for starting the channel.
Yeah.
We just thought it was, good information that people needed to know because it was an eye opener for us.
Yeah.
And then it's just become so much more.
Yeah.
It's become so much more. We really have a community of very positive and supportive people, and it's amazing to see how far our reach can go too with online video as well. We get comments from all over the world.
So Carrie asks, can you do tiny homes in any state, or are there states which have restrictions for this? I would go ahead. I'll say as a realtor, and you guys say in your experience, and I'll say what I think as a California realtor.
Typically, like, you can buy a tiny home and put it in whatever RV park you would like, but if you're looking for a community, it's going to be few and far in between because it's such a new thing. It's a newer thing.
Yeah.
But I think now, like a lot of places are talking about creating different communities and things like that. So I feel like in the future, it'll be easier to find communities that will do them. So
Well, especially here in California, it's very desirable place to live because we have great weather. Obviously, you guys were in Florida. Florida has great weather also. So those kind of places are very desirable to live. And then also the economy in California is pretty good. So a lot of people want to live here because there's good jobs and there's good weather. But because of that, the housing is just insane. I mean, what you pay for what you get in California, especially on the coast or in the Bay Area or in LA, is like, it's ridiculous. So in order to combat that, what the state actually just passed this year is a new law that basically says that if the lot is big enough, almost every home in California can become a triplex. And so either they can add on to their house, add a separate unit, or possibly even park a unit in the back. Now, California, unfortunately, is known as having a lot of laws and a lot of restrictions, but there are more and more places because of the housing crisis. Really, it's nationwide, but especially on the east and west coast. Cities and counties and states are adopting new rules so that people can basically, if you work out an agreement with someone you know or anyone who has the space to put your house maybe in their backyard, or if they want to develop a community. So a friend of mine who I interviewed, she wants to have a community as well, and I would be down to do it as well. And you really don't need much room. How many tiny homes would you say you could put? Like, how big is the community you guys are in now?
This is I believe, a 1 acre lot, if I'm not mistaken. And there's about 13 lots.
Yeah, and then on top of that, I mean, that includes the driveway. There's a washateria. There's like a little bonfire area.
Okay.
There's like a community garden area.
Okay.
So there's like another house on the property that he'll later turn into a community center. So.
And is this all private, or is this through like the county, or how does that work?
So it's privately owned. Yeah, there's one real estate developer that took on the cost of the land and developing it and all that. And he had to run it through the city council. It was about a 3-year project for him.
Okay.
They put him through all kinds of red tape and the ringer on it. But once he finally got it off the ground, it's coming together really well.
That's awesome.
12 out of 13 houses actually came yesterday. So it's really starting to
Nice.
look good. And the grass is getting green and the trees are blooming. So
nice.
It's a really beautiful place.
Yeah, everyone's asking, do you need a permit? I guess it would depend on the guy who owns the community has the permit, right? And you guys just rent from him? Okay.
Yep. He owns the land permit. We just rent from him. And then there were some guidelines associated with the home. There's what they call NOAA certification, and then there's also RVIA certification. Those are the two different certifications associated with like tiny homes. In terms of like inspections and making sure that everything is up to code. Right.
And probably each state would be a little bit different, but like hypothetically, you could pick it up and move it wherever you wanted to go. Have you thought, obviously you moved to Dallas for work, but have you considered, I don't know, maybe going back to Missouri or maybe another state where you would want to live?
Yeah, so Missouri is something that we might do for sure. And that was a big part of the move to Dallas was wanting to be back closer to home, but still be in the South where it was pretty warm for most of the year, even though it did get pretty cold this year.
Yeah.
Our pipes actually froze.
Oh, no.
But yeah, we might move it, back to Missouri as well at some point.
Awesome. Well, it's good to know that you can do that. And great. Well, I just want to say thank you guys so much for your time. So something I've done with everyone that I've talked to, I've said, will you commit to a future podcast that's maybe like in the studio with better gear, or maybe do like a day in the life kind of vlog if we come out there and maybe get to know you guys more in person. But or would you guys be down for some further segments?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to do more.
Awesome. And what are some things you guys got coming up on the channel? Where can people find you? What can we look forward to coming from you guys on your channel?
Yeah, so we're here on Instagram as Tiny House Lifestyle, tiny_house_lifestyle. And then over on YouTube, it's Living Tiny with the Bushes. That's Bushes. Bush is our last name, so that's kind of where the name of the channel comes from. But yeah, on our YouTube channel, it's all about our debt-free journey, our lifestyle in our 200-square-foot home, and really just having a lot of fun. We make a lot of jokes.
Yeah.
We do comedy sketches. We do all kinds of stuff. It's been a blast.
I love it.
So on the channel next, Probably a day in the life, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, a day in the
Awesome.
life and 200 square feet under quarantine. It's going to be a pretty funny one.
That's awesome.
So
And
it'll be
what do
good.
you guys just I have a little bit of experience with media. What equipment are you guys using?
Right now,
Our phones.
yeah, every single
Really?
video on our channel thus far has been filmed with a Galaxy S8. We haven't even
Wow.
bought a camera yet. So we are,
We just bought a microphone though, so we have that on its way, and then we have a ring light. But
yeah.
That's
Lighting
awesome.
makes the difference. Yep.
It does.
1080 looks like 1080 when you have the right lighting on it.
Lighting and sound make a difference for sure. But now you can pretty much get a whole studio kit on Amazon. It's a little delayed in delivery these days, but you can.
Absolutely.
What?
We ordered our microphone on April 5th, and they just charged our card today,
Oh,
and it's
wow.
expected to get here May 3rd, so almost
Cool.
a full 30 days.
What? And then what do you guys do for editing?
I edit everything in iMovie. I create the animations with Keynote, and then I do the graphics and the thumbnails with Canva.
Canva, yep.
But yeah, iMovie is it.
And then are you doing the editing on your laptop or on your phone?
On the laptop, yeah. I knew it would be way too tedious on the phone.
So then are you just doing like AirDrop, or do you use your cord to transfer the video that you capture and then you edit it?
Yep, exactly.
Cool. And so what are some advice that you have? So a lot of people, when they think about starting a channel or doing anything, creating content, they're like, oh, well, I'm not a photographer. I'm not a videographer. I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not an audio engineer. So you've become all of those things in the last year. What would be your advice to someone who has zero experience with that stuff?
I would say the key is just putting in the work. Like literally everything I've learned about how to edit, how to do thumbnails, how to use iMovie, Keynote, everything I've learned about YouTube has been from YouTube.
From YouTube
Right?
or Google.
There are entire channels dedicated just to teaching you about sound, entire channels dedicated just to teaching you about thumbnails and graphic design and color theory and all of those different components that go into it. And if you spend the time to learn, I try to learn every day. Even when I watch TV and movies now, I look at TV and movies different. I'm like,
we can't even watch a movie without him saying, "Oh, babe, look at that cool shot." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah, you'll notice different little things.
Way. I'm the same. I'm exactly the same way. That's why I'm asking you guys those questions, because
Yeah,
that, like, a couple reasons why. One, I'm sure as your channel grows and as your budget grows, you're going to invest in a team and you're going to invest in gear. But it shows you guys have, look at the attention that you've gotten in just in 2020. And it's only going to grow exponentially. I have a feeling in the next few months, you guys are just going to blow up. But you're doing that on your phone. So just that mentality of like, you don't need to overspend. You don't need all the fanciest stuff. You just need to have a vision, have a team. You guys are doing it as a couple, and then just execute. And, obviously I'm a huge Gary Vee fan. I think most people that are on YouTube are big Gary Vee fans. And that's his whole message. It's just do it. Just execute.
Yeah.
And like you said, as you start, you'll figure it out. Like already just by doing these Instagram lives, they've been awesome. But now I think I might try doing it. I don't know if you knew, but you can go on Zoom and then it can be on Facebook Live. Did you guys know that?
Oh,
no.
So how a lot of people are doing the interviews, even on the news, like on the nightly news, they're just on Zoom or Skype, and then they put that on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live. So, but the format's a little bit better. So Instagram's cool, but I think that I'm going to try that out as well. But there's really no excuse. Like you said, anything you, could ever want to know is knowable. It's on YouTube, and for the most part, it's free. I mean, it's crazy the amount of information that's available. So, I super appreciate you guys' time, super inspired by your story, and definitely, I think people should definitely work on getting out of debt, should work on having those difficult conversations with their significant other about money, and should be creative and start a channel or start something that they're passionate about. So again, thank you guys so much. What's the last words you want to leave everybody with?
You can do anything you put your mind to. Like, seriously, there's
Take
no
action.
task that is too big to tackle. Just start one little bit at a time and you'll get there.
Yeah, whether it's getting on the same page with your spouse, whether it's starting to tackle debt, whether it's starting a channel, whether it's starting a new business, whatever, just take action.
fitness,
Everything
anything.
you hear us talk about started really small and started with us being really scared and not knowing what the heck we were doing. And little by little, you take action every single day. And eventually you get to the place that people look at it and they're like, wow. And, we're regular, everyday people.
Yep.
These are just small steps every single day can become something great over time. So
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you guys so much for your time. I'm going to record this and send you a copy. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night and look forward to watching your channel.
All right, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Take care, guys.